Yeah, 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 yeah.
Hi and welcome to Stella's Meza. On today's episode, I'll show you how to make a meatball biryani. In Swahili, we call it biryani or kebabu. Now, there are two sets of ingredients for this recipe. We'll start with the meatball ingredient. What I just showed you was some rice. I use basmati rice that's been soaked and cleaned. It's been soaked for 30 minutes. And over there, I have some ground beef. Now, I used 90% fat, 10% lean ground beef. And over there in that plate, I have some freshly ground black pepper, cumin powder, coriander powder, salt, and some ground cinnamon. And here I have some finely diced onions, and we also have ginger garlic paste. Now, we'll also need an egg that's been beaten. We'll need some flat leaf parsley, and I'll also be using a pepper. I used jalapeno pepper that I ground. Now, as far as equipment, you're going to need, I'm using here tin foil for baking, like a lasagna deep dish foil. That's disposable. If you have any dish that's that deep, you can use that because we're going to be layering this dish. You'll also need a baking sheet that's been covered in aluminum foil and lightly sprayed in some cooking spray. Okay? Now, we also need a big bowl in which you will mix all your ingredients that I'm going to pull up right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to start mixing the ingredients, and the egg and the ground beef are going to go in last. So into this bowl, I will add our breadcrumbs, our salt, and all the spices I mentioned earlier. Now remember, for all the ingredients used in this recipe, including the step-by-step instructions and the measurements, please visit my blog. It is www.stellasmeza.blogspot.com. So what you see me doing there is mixing the spices together with breadcrumbs. Now, I always do this when I'm making meatballs or meatloaf. I first start with the dry ingredients, the semi-dry ingredients, and then the meat and the eggs go in last. That way I don't overwork my meat to make it hard. Now, into the breadcrumbs, I've added the onions, and right there I've added the ginger garlic paste. And then I'm going to add that jalapeno pepper. Now, I take out the seeds from my jalapeno pepper because I don't want it too hot, okay? I like the flavor of the jalapeno pepper, but I don't like my food too hot. If you like your food hot, you can leave the seeds in there, all right? So I'm going to add in the flat leaf parsley into the mix. If you like, you could use coriander, or as they call it in other parts of the world, cilantro. All right, so we're just going to give it a mix right there. Make sure everything's well combined. Now, it should look like this when you're done. This is before you add the meat and the egg to the mix. All right, so now I'm going to add in the meat. Now, you want to try and break up the ground beef because a lot of times when it's ground, it comes stuck together. So you don't want any parts of the ground beef that does not get that spice mixture into it. That's why I like to break it up the way I'm doing right here. And once it's all in the bowl, you're going to add your egg in there. You're going to mix it all well. Make sure all the meat is coated in that meatloaf, in that breadcrumb spice mixture, and then you're going to add your egg into the mix. Now, what I do is I use 2 forks. You can use your clean hands to mix this, or you can use a fork. If you're using your clean hands, please make sure to go lightly. Do not overmix, or you're going to end up with very hard meatballs. You don't want that. You want it nice and fluffy. That's why I'm using 2 forks, and I'm just going to mix them up this way. Remember not to overwork it. Okay? And then once that's nicely mixed, I'm going to create a well in the center of the bowl to which I am going to add the beaten egg. And in goes the egg. And once again, you're going to mix that well till if you squeeze the meatball mixture into your hand, it'll hold together without falling apart. Then you know it's ready to form into little balls. Now today I'm going to go a different route. I am going to shape this mixture into an egg shape as opposed to a round shape. You can do it any way you want. I just thought it would look cooler. And what I have there is an ice cream scoop, a large ice cream scoop, and you can use a tablespoon. Now the reason I use this ice cream scoop is to make sure that all my meatballs are the same size. That way they cook evenly, okay? If you have some that are smaller than others, some will cook before others, okay? Or they could easily burn in the oven. So that's why I'm using that scoop to make sure the size is all the same. And you're just going to shape it between the palm of your hands. And you were looking for something this shape. If you want to make them into an egg shape, if you want them round, go ahead and make them round. And you could lightly grease your hands with some cooking oil, just so the meat does not stick to your hand. But if it's all mixed well together, it should not stick to your hand. Okay, I'm going to do another one just so you can see how it's done. Now this recipe will also require a second set of ingredients that I'll show you after this, okay? That's for the masala that will go up over our meatballs. Now while you're mixing your meatballs and making the meatballs, you want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 180 degrees Celsius, okay? So I'm just placing them on the baking sheet as I roll them out. And when done, it should look something like this. Now you're going to put it in the oven and let it bake. Now, the second set of ingredients over here, I have 2 large onions that have been shredded. You can use 1 large one if you like. I have there some peeled diced tomatoes. I have there a red bell pepper, or in other parts of the world they call it a capsicum. And I have over there half of a jalapeno pepper. And I have some yogurt. I used plain yogurt, nothing flavored. I have some tomato paste and some oil in which we'll fry our onions. We'll also need some oil, which once we're done, we're going to drizzle up over our rice. I have some saffron that I steeped in some warm milk, and that's what we're going to drizzle up over our rice. And this is what the saffron threads look like. Okay, they're little, but they give a lot of color and a very beautiful flavor. If you don't have that, you can use turmeric mixed in some warm water. Now to our pan there, we've added that oil. We're going to fry our onions. Now you want to fry them to the point that they are golden brown, but not burnt. Okay. You want to caramelize them beautifully. And this is going to give a nice aroma to our meatballs. And then we're going to place some of them up over the rice to give it a nice aroma from the top as well. And you'll see what I mean as we go along. And you want to make sure that that oil is hot and you want to heat it up on medium-high heat. Okay, just make sure you keep turning the onions, that way they do not burn. You just want to coat them in that oil, make sure they're well cooked but not burnt. And once it's done, you're going to take half of the onions, okay, and you're going to put them in a bowl and set them aside. But this is what it needs to look like once it's done, nice and brown. And on the side, I had our rice cooking in some water over medium heat. And you can see there, I took a grain of rice, and I broke it between my thumb and my finger. It should be a little hard when you press it, but it should not be cooked. It should be al dente. Okay, and then you're going to drain that and set it aside. Now you can see I'm taking out half the onions from that pan with the onions, and it should look this color. It shouldn't be any darker than this, or it's going to give your food that burnt onion smell and flavor you do not want. All right. So once that's done, we're going to start adding the other ingredients into the pan. Over here I have our diced peeled tomatoes, and I buy them canned. If you can, buy them that way, or you can just use 3 or 4 medium-sized tomatoes. You can blanch them if you like to take the skin off, or you can just cut them up into small pieces and use them that way. I like my tomatoes peeled that way. The skin does not float to the top of whatever it is I'm cooking. I don't like the side of that. So you give it a good mix, and then you're going to add your jalapeno pepper into that mixture. And again, I seasoned my jalapeno pepper. You can use any kind of pepper you like, Scotch bonnet, whatever you have available, you can use that. If you like your food really hot, like I mentioned earlier, just leave the seeds in. I took my seeds out, and I'm going to give that a good stir. All right, and you want to make sure that this is cooking on medium heat as well. All right, now I'm going to add our red bell peppers that I diced. In other places in the world, they call it capsicum. So that's what I've just added into that pan, and I'm going to give it a good stir, make sure everything's well mixed. And you can see the colors are starting to pop. You have the flecks of green in there, you have the red. It's just a beautiful thing, and I wish you could smell this. It smells amazing. All right, now we're going to add our spices in there. Over there, I have cardamom powder and some garam masala, and I'm giving it a good mix. Now, if you'd like to buy any of these spices, if there's no Indian store around where you live, I'll include a link at the bottom of this video to my Amazon store. I do sell the spices I use in my videos. You can buy them there if you don't have easy access to them at a regular like Indian grocery stores. Okay, so you want to let it cook a little, let it simmer for a little bit, and you're going to notice that it's going to thicken. And once you pull, it's kind of pulls away from the side of the pan. At this point, you want to add in your tomato paste. And I love this tube tomato paste because I find that it's easy to store once you open the can. Or you can, if you don't have those in your area, you can just use the regular little canned ones. And I'm going to give it a mix. And this is going to thicken this masala further. Now, masala just simply means a mix of spices, really. So over here, you're going to give it a good stir. And then lastly, you're going to add in your yogurt. Okay. Now, I know a lot of people find it weird to cook with yogurt, but I assure you that it gives your food a good flavor. And it's also a very good tenderizing agent. It breaks down the protein in meats and makes whatever it is you're cooking that has meat in it really nice and soft. Okay. And you can use the Greek yogurt. That's fine. I'm using just plain yogurt, full-fat yogurt. I'm not going to go with the non-fat because I find that this has a fuller flavor for this recipe. Okay, so we're going to give it a good mix. And then we're done with that. You're going to set that aside. Now, these are meatballs. They've come out the oven. They're nicely cooked. As you can see, they're browned, but not burnt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a layer of that masala mixture up over the meatballs. And if it doesn't fall the way you want it to fall, don't worry about it. You can go back later and just kind of layer it. Make sure that you use your wooden spoon or spatula to just smear that mixture up over the meatballs. Okay? And I'm just putting that up there. Trying to make sure that every meatball has some of that sauce up over it. Now, the flavors from this masala are going to infuse into the meatballs and also soften them. It's going to be a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I'm going to go back with my wooden spoon there and just spread that mixture up over the meatballs. Make sure everything's well coated with that masala mixture. Just like I'm doing there. Now remember, to the side, you'd already cooked your rice al dente. That means not all the way cooked. Okay, I cooked it for exactly 8 minutes. And you drain it completely and you set it aside. So what we're going to do next, after I've covered the meatballs with this masala, is I am going to layer the rice up over this mixture here with the meatballs and the masala. Okay, just going to spread it using a spoon and make sure that the whole surface is covered. It's just rice. And then from there we'll go to our next step. Okay, you can use a spoon, that's fine, whatever works for you. And try and be gentle. Don't be very rough with the rice, because you want that. You see how the grains are? It's single grains. It's not all mushed up together. You don't want to break the grains of rice. So just be very careful as you spoon it out from the pan where the rice is, to be gentle. Now, I get asked a lot of times how I get my rice to be singular like that. A secret I have, and here's a tip: you can put 1 teaspoonful of white vinegar in that water in which you soak your rice. That'll help you get that result, like a single rice. Now, what I'm doing over there is I have the mixture of the saffron threads that I'd steeped in some warm milk. You can also use turmeric powder. And I'm just gently sprinkling it up over the rice in no particular order. You can just put it anywhere. But make sure that you don't cover all the surface with the saffron mixture. Otherwise, you will not get that biryani look, the classical biryani look, where some grains of rice have color to them and some are just plain white. All right, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to drizzle the top of that rice with some cooking oil. And then I am going to put the onions up over. Remember the onions that we reserved, the fried onions, you put it up over the rice. And then we're going to cover the top of this with aluminum foil, and we're going to throw this into the oven and let it cook. And then we'll be ready to serve our dish, okay? So once our rice has been cooking in the oven for 20 to 25 minutes, and you want to bake it at 375 degrees, which is higher than the temperature at which you baked the meatballs, you're going to serve it up and it's going to look like this. You want to put at the bottom of your serving platter first the rice, and then you're going to put the masala the sauce we put up over the meatballs, and then followed by the meatballs on top. That way somebody should see what it is they're eating. They know that that's a meatball on there sitting on a bed of rice. As you can see there, a meatball is cooked. It's tender. It has light crisping on the outside and very tender on the inside. And I'm going to take a spoonful, or forkful rather, up to you so you can see what we're working with. You can see the grains of white rice and the yellow rice and the meatball sitting pretty up over that. That's a classical biryani for you, just something different. Well, thank you so much for joining me this time. I hope you join me next time as I take your taste buds on another culinary safari. Karibu Stella's Meza.
Yeah, 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 yeah.